Hello everyone, I am Mikhil. I work here with the marketing team here at Launchcode. Welcome to a new episode of Launchcast, the Launchcode podcast. Did you know that our seniors, according to some forecasts, are going to account for almost 25% of the Canadian population by 2036? Keeping that in mind, we're going to talk about Soul today, a project that was developed keeping in mind the administrative inefficiencies at some of the retirement residences and senior living communities. More on that right after a very cool opening animation. With me is our CEO and number 4 on the Launchcode squash leaderboard, Alberio. Welcome to Launchcast.
Thanks, Mikhil. Yeah, and thanks for mentioning the number 4. I'm actually pretty proud of that. I should be way lower than that, so I guess I've been practicing and doing better than some of the people here recently.
Glad to hear. I just had to mention that, so I thought it was pretty funny. My understanding is that Soul was developed aiming some of the administrative efficiencies at retirement residences. Could you shed a little bit more light on how this whole thing worked?
Sure. First of all, we had somebody come to us, a friend of mine actually, by the name Tim. He owned a residence home. He actually had a few retirement homes in the past as well in Ontario and Quebec. And, he's an entrepreneur, he's an innovator. He looked at it and he realized that the industry had some challenges, right? Not only the industry, but in his own organization, he had some challenges. Some of the challenges that were really apparent was on the scheduling front. So within his organization, it's all shift schedules, it's nurses. They had a few people working, creating the different shift schedules that would comply with, regulations that are required by the Alberta government, any sort of union regulations. And the complexity of having a couple hundred people scheduled for, multiple locations within the retirement home is pretty daunting. It took, a few people just to create a schedule for a couple of weeks, and they can only really do it a couple of weeks in advance. And then once the schedule was up, a lot of times, some of the nurses, the schedule wouldn't work for them, so then they would have to start basically, bargaining among themselves to figuring out who can take whose shift and start trading. So it became, a strategically complex part of the business to run. And, he was innovative. He realized that, there's a way better way to do this. Using technology, using artificial intelligence, there's got to be a much better way to do this. So he approached us and we talked with him. One of the main things we did right in the beginning is we really try to understand what his business was about. So it wasn't just like, okay, Tim, tell us what you want and we'll build it for you. It was, Tim, let us understand your business as though we worked there. So we actually went to Medicine Hat. For those of you who may not know where that is, that's a couple hours away from where we were. We went on a road trip a few times there. So us and a couple of the smarter, more creative people than myself joined us in these trips. And while we were there, we'd really try to understand, okay, what is it that you do? Who's your client base? Who are your employees? He had a phenomenal staff over there, and he mentioned that to us. Yeah, I have a great staff. When we got there, we got to meet them, and we really understood why he said that. And so understanding his business was very, very important, because if you want to build a solution, you can't just, try to do it without empathy, without understanding what's required. You can't just take a look at a problem and say, okay, I know I'm going to resolve it exactly like this, without really being, in the skin or in the shoes of the people that are involved. So we try to do that. That engagement in itself, is part of our process that we do at Launchcode. It took a couple weeks, but it was really important because we started realizing that was like, okay, well, there's some things we can help here, not just with technology, but even business process efficiencies, as long as there's the proper technology to enable it, right? So we came back and we really took a look at how can we leverage some of these top technology trends out there. So, some artificial intelligence here, a little bit, did a bit of machine learning. We tried different algorithms that were just coming out, and try to figure out how to be extremely innovative on solving this problem. So right off the bat, we have a problem that, morale is not the greatest if you only know your shifts for the next 2 weeks, right? Because if you're a nurse and you're going to schedule, vacation in the future, or if you got holidays, Christmas holidays, anything like that coming up, it gives you a bit of anxiety if you don't know when you're working past 2 weeks. So that right off the bat is not the greatest for morale, right? And in a tight market where nurses can choose where they go and work, that's something you really want to address to keep the best staff on your employment as much as possible. Then the second one was, now you have an operationally heavy team like you could use for other purposes, but instead they have to be really focused on figuring out how to solve this complex challenge, how to create these schedules, put 100 plus nurses on a piece of paper, figure out the different areas of the building that they can work on. And depending on how long they worked and which part of the building, they'd have to go to a different floor. They can't work past a certain amount of time in one building or one floor. There's got to be breaks in between. And then if they schedule, multiple shifts during the week, there's rules that if you work over X amount of hours or back to back too closely, you got to pay overtime. So there's a lot of rules associated with it. So we took a look at that and said, okay, well, how can we do this? And how can we bring in these rules so that they're dynamic, right? They're not hard coded into the system, but as rules change in the future, they can be dynamically changed. And then how do we create a smart algorithm to take all of these rules into place and create, a beautiful, elegant solution for him?
That sounds mind-boggling when you first talk about it, right? Like so many complexities, and come to think of it, doing all that stuff manually and trying to keep everything in mind, all the permutations and combinations. That's quite a mind-boggling task, actually. Come to think of it, I'm assuming optimization projects are technically some of the most challenging ones because you don't really know how you're going to deal with this. So what was the process like at Launchcode to solve this?
Yeah, and you bring up a good point there. These are one of the biggest challenges to solve, but it's also one of the funnest because it's almost like you're creating a baby and then you let that baby loose and all of a sudden the baby is smarter than you, right?
Right.
And so it's pretty fun. Before we actually solved the problem, we go through our 4-step process at Launchcode. So we have the dream meeting. That's when Tim comes and talks to us and tells us his idea. And his idea is not necessarily the solution yet. It's just that I have a vision of having an organization where the morale is real high, where we can schedule shifts way into the future, where it's not taking us so long to do these shifts, where people can exchange shifts easily, right? So he tells us this. And this is kind of the parameters we have. So it's almost like a North Star. It's not exactly a functional or even a technical spec by that means, right? So we do that, and then we bring it in internally. Based on that, we take a look at what technologies out there can we use for this. We're not tied to one technology. A lot of times we like to research and use what's the most innovative, what's the newest technology out there, because a lot of times you can do better than the status quo by leaps and bounds if you do that, right? So we wanted to make sure we were innovative and we were doing this right off the bat. And as we do the research, we then go back and we visit his facility. We go a lot deeper in the details, right? So the down and dirty, as we like to call it. We go a lot more deeper in the details. So now we start looking at what other systems do they use. They had multiple systems that they used internally. They did some stuff by pen and paper. They used Excel sheets for other stuff. So we take a look at all of this and then we understand how they've addressed their need, by using kind of existing technology. And then after that, we then take it internally, and then our creatives go crazy. And this is the part that's the funnest, where they really unleash their imagination and come up with some just beautifully elegant solutions, right? So what we then do is, our designers and our developers will get together and say, okay, this is what we would like to build, if we're going to build it. And then we basically create a proof of concept. So these are, clickable screens that we show the whole process from beginning to end, from a nurse schedule being made to a nurse exchanging schedules between themselves to, time tracking. So checking in, checking out, and we create all of those in clickable screens that shows our client and our partner exactly what they're getting. So it's not just a quote on a piece of paper that, it's going to cost this much. It's, let me show you what your vision could look like. And then we show it, we have what we call the presentation of awesomeness. Another fun term we like to use internally. And it really is awesome. We're all sitting there, we're going through it. This one, we went to Medicine Hat and it lasted a couple hours. And by the end, they were like, okay, sounds great. Let's just start using it next week, turn it on.
Oh, man.
So they actually, they thought because we had so much of this to show them, it's not just theoretical. We had to show them the proof of concept, that they thought it was a fully functioning application that we could just turn it on, right? So, that's the beauty of it. We don't really leave too much to imagination. We show them exactly what it could be.
Wow, that really is something. Like, I'm trying to think, like somebody imagined something and, in the proof of concept, you guys actually created like a functioning prototype. And that guy actually being able to see that, oh, this works. Wow. Like I said right at the start of the podcast, the senior population in our country, in Canada, is expected to increase, and it could go up to around 25% of our population, which is great. Like to have so much experience around us, but it also means that the demand for retirement communities, retirement residences, is going to increase, and I'm assuming what Soul has done here, or what Launchcode has done with Soul here, has created certain amount of administrative efficiencies. And it's something that people can, companies around the country, around the world can actually employ. And potentially bringing down costs for seniors down the line. So this is absolutely great. Any other thoughts that come to your mind? Any anecdotes? How did it all pan out? Like, what were the results and the responses?
Well, you mentioned something about the efficiencies, and we have to be more efficient as we move forward in this in our society, and it really that rings the bell really, because as our population grows, especially the retirement homes population grows, you have to become more and more efficient in order not to just consume a lot of resources from our, our government, because they partly sponsor this here in Alberta, right? But also, for people in general. So how do you do that? And you just have to take a look at everything and say, okay, well, we're in an age of automation, right? We're in an age where technology is just, you can create such elegant, solutions to everyday problems. So, this solution, when they came out, it was breathtaking. Like, it was so different than anything out there that existed. It was amazing. Organizations that had 2 or 3 people creating these shifts on an ongoing basis, you no longer needed those 2 or 3 people. They can be used in other parts of the retirement homes that are, for patient care, for things that really affect the patient, right? And so, this solution now, when they turned it on, it was amazing. It used artificial intelligence. It would then start scheduling the most appropriate people for their, for the most appropriate shifts, minimizing, unnecessary overtime, right? Making sure that people's shifts fell within their proper parameters of requirements, be it, Alberta requirements or union requirements. And at the end of the day, they could create shifts months in advance. They could do, shifts a year in advance. So it was really amazing, because the nurses, they did a survey after this was done. Morale went up by 98%. Sick time went down significantly.
Yeah.
And the reason that is because now, you have an app. On that app, shows all your shifts going forward. But let's say you don't, there's a shift you can't work. You just put it up into the app. You say, I can't work this shift. And now it goes into the app for everybody, and it's open for anybody to take that shift, right? So you no longer have to do this one-on-one negotiation with everybody to see who can take your shift. You put it up there.
Right.
And then based on rules and seniority and all that, whoever picked up the shift will automatically say, okay, well, you can take that shift. So it almost became like the Uber of shift exchange, right? You put the shift up there, and then
the most analogy.
Yeah, the most applicable person would then pick up those shifts. And so now you gave, what it really did is gave autonomy and freedom back to the employees. They no longer needed to go through, an approval process or a manager and do all of this. Now it's just all through the click of the button. They can now manage, how much they want to work, when they want to work, how often, all right? So it really increased morale by a whole bunch. And then for Tim, it actually increased, it decreased the fixed costs of the retirement home by a significant factor, in that the valuation of his retirement home increased, by about $8 million. And, retirement homes, when you increase the valuation like that, you can borrow on that and then build your next retirement home, right? So it was a extremely significant solution for him, with a payback, of less than 6 months. So it was extremely, extremely important for his organization.
Absolutely win-win for everyone. No, it's just incredible how technology can be used to solve day-to-day, issues, and actually improve the lives of companies, people in the communities. And I guess that's what you're after at Launchcode, right? I mean,
yeah. At the end of the day, we just like to build applications that are innovative, that bring some sort of value back to society in some sort of way. We really thrive and we really enjoy building things that don't exist. So, for any organization out there that's having challenges, using software that's off the shelf that they don't enjoy, or be it, using a lot of Excel spreadsheets or even paper-based, that's where we can come in and really transform that organization.
Yeah. And it's kind of great that we can create software applications which actually fit their processes, instead of them having to, tweak their processes to fit the off-the-shelf applications, right?
And that's exactly what a lot of our customers say, right? So, they're tired of basically having to change their internal way of doing business to fit what's out there. So that's where we come in with a lot of empathy, and it's like, well, let's understand your business. Let's understand the uniqueness of you, and let us build technology to help support you, not just a generic thing out there.
Thanks a lot for that, Alberio. That was really insightful conversation. It was something really great to hear from you, from a developer yourself. Right? I mean, it's great.
Well, thank you. Thanks for having me. And then hopefully by next time I'll be a little bit higher than fourth on the squash ladder, if everybody keeps being nice to me and letting me win. So
I know after today, I don't want to get into the squash court with you. Yeah, I don't know what's going to happen after that. That's it for today's Launchcast. I hope you found this conversation as enjoyable as it was insightful. Do not forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe to Launchcode's channel. Alberio, you have a couple of words?
Yeah, thank you for joining us at Launchcast today. It was my pleasure to speak on behalf of this wonderful project that we really enjoy doing. If you know anybody out there that's looking for a custom solution, something that's innovative, please let them know about us. Or if you're looking to start your career, or even just have a game of squash, please contact us, and I'd be happy to help you.
Do follow Launchcode on other social media platforms for a lot more of our content. The links are in the description. See you at the next episode of Launchcast. Until next time.